Hey everyone, this is Jason with the Buddy INS team, and I am here to teach you about how to navigate our individual long-term care sales tools that are available to you within the Buddy system. So this will serve as an exercise that will show you how to use our tools really to prepare for a case that you may be working with an individual on for long-term care. Now, the first thing you want to make sure that you do is make sure that you have the individual tab selected here. As you can see, we sort between group and individual long-term care. So make sure this is set to individual. And we generally are going to want to start at the individual product buddy tool. What the individual product buddy tool does is it takes in a few key pieces of input about your client, and it will recommend a product type and show some available carriers that might be a really good fit for your client based on those inputs. So the first thing you want to do with your prospect or client is make sure you get the information that will help you fill in these inputs. So let's just say I'm working with a client who is 60 years old. Let's say they are in the state of Kansas. And then we have this health assessment input. And you can actually see how we define these health assessment categories down below. You'll see some detailed descriptions behind that. But I am going to say that my 60-year-old client is of average health. And for preferred funding, I'm going to leave it as any, but you can select if they have a preferred way they'd like to fund their plan. They can either go pay as you go, single pay, or limited pay, and it will show options based on that. So you can see that the order of recommended solutions has actually changed here. So we have traditional long-term care, which is labeled as LTCI as our top recommendation. We have life plus long-term care insurance extension or hybrid long-term care as number 2. Short-term care and annuity long-term care are all of the recommendations that we have here. And putting in different inputs will change this order around, and the available carriers here are going to be for the solution type that you have selected. So you can see I can actually switch from traditional to hybrid long-term care, and you can see there are different carriers available here, along with short-term care if available and annuity long-term care if available. So I have traditional long-term care as the first option mentioned here. Mutual of Omaha, Thrivent, and Bankers Life are here. If I were to say go to maybe Excellent Health, NGL would pop up. But this is just to kind of show you how things may change based on what you put into these inputs on the left-hand side. So the bullet points here are going to give you an idea of why might this solution be right for your client. This applies to the first carrier mentioned here, so Mutual of Omaha. So you can see it shows the age ranges, what kind of health parameters they may consider, what the LTC leverage looks like, so what kind of inflation protection and what sort of benefit periods we have available, what kind of payment options we have available, reimbursement versus indemnity. We'll be able to tell you the differences there. And something that's just really good to know about this plan. That's what these highlights are designed to do for you. And you can see based on the product type you have selected, we actually have this really nice one-page sell sheet that you can use to provide to your client. I think this is best used as a leave behind piece or a supportive piece in your discussion that will remind the client and reinforce why you're looking at and talking about this type of long-term care plan. So you can see we talk about who the ideal candidates are based on what their health picture looks like, ages, preferred funding, what their goals are and financial profile is. Do men or women or both receive great value for their money, financial needs? So this allows the client to kind of read through a couple of these aspects and say, hey, this actually sounds like me. And toward the bottom of the one-page sell sheet, we'll get some items in here about why to look at this product type. So for traditional, we have efficient coverage, looking at the partnership program, tax deductibility, affordable premiums, great benefits for partners who apply together, and strong inflation protection growth. And these one pagers are different depending on what product type you select. So if we have hybrid life long-term care, you can see the goals, preferred funding, all of this stuff will change, including the reasons why to look at this type of product. So once you have one or two of these that you feel comfortable with, just hit this button to download this one pager as a PDF. And right away, you're already set with a piece to bring to your client that's very informative and allows the client to understand why they may be recommended this product type. And this really constitutes step one of using our individual sales tools. So what I've accomplished here is I've put in some simple information about my client. I've gotten some recommended product types. I am able to find out what carriers are available based on this client I'm working with, where they live, how old they are, where their health may be at, and how they want to fund their plan. So this helps me dial in what's available, what's not, and gives me some materials to present to my client to further educate them. So we want to take the next step. You can do that up here to access the individual quick quote tool. Now, this is going to be a simpler version of our Benefit Buddy tool that's over here. We have an entirely separate Learning Lab module that's devoted to Benefit Buddy itself. So definitely take a look at that. Benefit Buddy is a hugely informative and helpful sales tool and premium estimator for long-term care. But for this particular quick quote tool, this is designed to keep things very simple and present to the client the pricing and value of either traditional or hybrid long-term care. If you're looking at one of these two, it would make sense to take them here next and get an idea of the cost for them. So all you have to do is select traditional or hybrid long-term care. Again, these are estimates. You're going to want to get a formal quote, of course, to get a real idea of the premium. You're going to want to pre-qualify with the carrier to get an idea of what rate class they may qualify for whatever carrier you're looking at. This is estimated rates that we're looking at here. So all you have to do is put in the client's age. I was working with a 60-year-old. Let's say we're working with a male client. Claim age is just a hypothetical point in time that you want to imagine needing long-term care and to see how the policy may perform for you at that point in time, given the premiums you've paid in and the benefits that you have available. So what this calculator does is it assumes 3% compound inflation and a 6-year benefit period. Okay, so the only other option we can really change here is the monthly benefit. But as you do change it, the premiums change, the benefits change, and the insurance multiplier changes. So this is an easy way to take your client through and say, if we looked at a $6,000 monthly benefit for a traditional long-term care plan, it would come in at $351 a month. If we started this at age 60, paid premiums till age 80, when we would then go on claim, we would have paid in $84,346 in total paid premiums. We have $10,837 a month of benefit at age 80 that's available to us for long-term care, and our total long-term care benefits sit at $841,152. This insurance multiplier is the most important part of this calculator. What this says is for every dollar of premium we put into this plan, we would have about 10 times that in total long-term care benefits. Or for every dollar we put into this plan, we essentially get $10 for long-term care. So this is a great way to introduce the client. Now that we've looked at insurance options that are available to the client. This is a good way to show them how much does this actually cost for me, or how much would this cost for me at various different benefit levels. So again, a great way to introduce the client to some sample rates and figures, but then it's best practice to say, we're going to actually formally quote you with carriers. We're going to pre-qualify you to see if our health can buy us a plan as well as our wealth. And the figures may change, but this is going to help us kind of dial in a budget and get comfortable with a certain level of insurance value with our plan. And again, this can be done with traditional or hybrid long-term care. There's also lots of other educational material under here that would be able to help reinforce this conversation. So feel free to take a look at that as well. And you can feel free to even take a screen cap of the calculator. You can actually just take a snip of this and send it to the client as a way to remind them of what you went over in the calculator. So I think this is another super, super important piece to working with clients. We started with Product Buddy. Now we're through in the quick quote. And now it's time for step 3. Now that we've gone through the calculator, let's hit the next step arrow. Now, there are a couple of steps that you can take once you get to this step of the individual sales tool process. You have the option to obviously work with the client on your own, write the business on your own, formally quote the case and pre-qualify on your own. But there are many who just don't want to do that, or maybe don't feel confident closing or asking for the sale, or getting the client to really and truly understand the long-term care need and do something about it. So we do have the option to allow you on a commission split basis to work with one of our top long-term care specialists and have them work directly with the client, either with you on the calls, or if you choose to put your feet up and let the specialist work directly with the client at any point in the case, whether you're just starting the conversation and have just been through Product Buddy and Quick Quote, or you've had a longer conversation, you can invite the specialist in really at any time to work with the client. You just need to fill out this form, the client's first name and last name and email, their phone number, as the referral partner, your first name, last name, email. If you work with a BGA or IMO or other national account, feel free to fill that in here. You can choose a specialist directly if you have an existing relationship with someone on the list and would like your client to work with them, that's fine. Or you can have the system choose a specialist for you. And you can choose to have the specialist contact you before contacting the client, or go right ahead and contact the client directly. You can also share some context here. When you hit submit, you'll be assigned a long-term care specialist who will be able to work directly with your client and, based on your directive, introduce themselves to you so that you can work together. They can get the necessary context for you and create a great experience for your client based around long-term care planning. Now, if you've got that level of experience and would like to write the case yourself and, do everything on your own, that doesn't mean that we're not still able to support you as a Buddy System member from there. We do have our individual sales guides that are there to give you deep dive information about each carrier and really help you to connect to those carriers, quote and apply, things of that nature. So let's pop over there. Our final stop of the day here, and this will give you lots of information about each of the individual carriers that we work with. So you can see it's separated by product type. So we've got traditional, hybrid, annuity-based, short-term care, and some alternative products. So when you cycle through these, once you've used Product Buddy to figure out a good solution, or use the individual quick quote to get an idea of pricing and value, now it's time to really finish things up and get a formal quote to pre-qualify with underwriters for your client to see if they are eligible for a plan with a certain carrier. This is where you're going to want to go. So you can see we have on these cards for each carrier age ranges, some highlights to show you at a high level what's available. If they have more than one product, you'll get information on that. You'll also get information on states where the product is not available, and you can click into the card for much, much more. But I do want to point your attention to this carrier contacts button here. If you click that, this will flip over to give you contact information for one of our wholesalers. You may use a wholesaler through your BGA. If you do, I would go there. But we also have the pre-screening email address to connect to underwriters to pre-qualify your client. So you can copy this email and you can send in the pre-qualification information and get an idea of whether or not your client will be able to apply for this plan. But if we go back to the cards and click into the card, there is lots of info available here on the product, much more deep dive. So you'll be able to get product sweet spots. You'll get all sorts of information like issue ages, what we see as the sweet spot sort of plan design, key state variations, where is the product different or maybe not available in certain states. All sorts of other information is at your fingertips here. More sample pricing available. But what's also very important is each of these sections has an application process section and a quoting process section. So small tutorials on how to actually go log in and apply for each carrier, access their e-app, and the quoting process. So we try to include a number of different platforms that you can quote on. You may have an existing way to quote a carrier. That's certainly fine to use, of course. But just here to show you how to actually go formally quote and apply with the carrier. We also include sample illustrations, specimen contracts, and outlines of coverage where available. And we also have the product and underwriting guides available. And you can hit the download button to download that for yourself. But we also have a bunch of other materials here, as many as we can find for each carrier, to give you other information that you may need. So this is the individual sales guide. You can feel free to access that as well. I would say, especially if you're doing self-service business, this is the way to go. But even if you choose to work with a specialist and you want to brush up on some products ahead of time or get more information, this is the place for you to go. So these are really our top individual sales tools that we have to help you make the business of long-term care easier. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. We're here for any questions, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.